Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by snowy mountains, there lived a poor farmer named Thomas. Thomas worked hard every day, but the winter was cruel. The wind howled through the trees, the fields were frozen, and food was scarce. Most people stayed inside their warm houses, but Thomas had little firewood and little food. He wrapped himself in an old coat and walked into the forest to collect sticks. His hands were rough, his stomach was empty, and his heart was heavy. As he walked, Thomas whispered to himself, "How long will this winter last? I have so little, yet I must keep going." While searching for wood, Thomas heard a faint sound. Chirp, chirp. He followed the weak sound until he saw a small bird lying in the snow. Its wings were frozen, its feathers covered with ice. The poor creature trembled, too weak to fly. Thomas knelt down and picked it up gently. "Poor little one," he said softly, "you will not survive another hour out here." For a moment, Thomas hesitated. He himself was hungry and weak. He thought, "Why should I spend my little food and fire on this bird? I can barely take care of myself." But then his heart spoke louder. "If I do nothing, this bird will die. If I help, at least one life can be saved." And so he carried the tiny creature home. Back in his small wooden house, Thomas placed the bird near the fireplace. He gently warmed its feathers with his hands. Slowly, the bird opened its eyes. Thomas took a handful of grain he had saved for spring planting. He poured a few seeds into his palm and whispered, "Eat, little one. You need it more than I do." At first, the bird did not move. Then, slowly, it pecked at the seeds. Thomas smiled. For the first time in weeks, his heart felt lighter. Day by day, the bird grew stronger. It hopped around the table, flapped its wings inside the room, and sometimes perched on Thomas's shoulder. In the silence of winter, the little bird became his only companion. Thomas would often speak to it as if it were a friend. "You remind me that even in the coldest times, life finds a way." Weeks passed, and the snow began to melt. Streams of water ran down the hills, and green shoots pushed through the soil. Spring had finally arrived. One morning, the bird fluttered its wings and looked toward the open window. Thomas knew what it meant. He said quietly, "It is time for you to go. You belong to the skies." The bird chirped as if to say thank you. Then it flew out into the bright blue sky. Thomas watched until it disappeared. His home felt empty again, but he was glad the bird had survived. "Perhaps I will never see it again," he thought. But at least I did what was right. Summer arrived, and Thomas worked hard in his fields, but one problem worried him. Insects began to eat his crops. The plants looked weak, and Thomas feared he would have no harvest. One morning, He walked into the fields with a heavy heart, but then he froze in surprise. A flock of birds circled above the farm, swooping down to eat the insects. They came again and again, clearing the pests from his land. And among them, Thomas saw a familiar little bird with bright eyes. It was the same one he had saved in winter. It seemed to lead the others, as if bringing its friends to repay Thomas's kindness. Day after day, the birds protected the fields. By autumn, Thomas's harvest was the best he had ever seen. Golden wheat, healthy vegetables, and full baskets filled his small home. On the last day of harvest, Thomas sat under a tree, watching the sunset. The little bird landed on his shoulder, singing a sweet, cheerful song. Tears filled Thomas's eyes as he whispered, "I gave you a little when I had almost nothing, and you gave me everything in return." Truly, kindness always finds its way back. From that day on, Thomas was known in the village as the farmer with the warmest heart. People admired his kindness, and they often came to him for wisdom. And Thomas always told them the same words: "No matter how little you have, you always have enough to be kind. And one day, that kindness will return to you in ways you cannot imagine." Even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something powerful. When we give from the heart, we never lose, we only gain.